Parents of Reddit, what are your I looked away for 1 second stories? I'm pretty sure I fit the bill for this one, but as a kid, not as the parent. My dad was watching myself and my 2 cousins play SNES down in our den, and got up to pee. Somehow in the 5 minutes he was gone, we'd gotten one of my cousins on the treadmill, and got it angled into a downhill descent, pretty sure we're the reason treadmills no longer have these, and jerked the dial all the way to max speed. My dad came in just in time to watch my cousin and I launch our other cousin 4 feet through the air into the wall. No worries, nothing broken, but trying to explain why my cousin had a big pump knot on her head got my dad in a lot of trouble. You're like the person who caused wheelbarrow tires to have that knot for highway use notice. My son was 3. We were leaving Target. He left my sight as I was adjusting my bags. Maybe 2 seconds, tops. Poof, he was gone. I try to act cool, but my true crime podcast obsession got the best of me. The store locks down. We are all looking for him. People are checking cars outside. I'm calling my son's name louder than any intercom system. We were just about to call police, and then my toddler slides out of the cart area and acts like, sup. He decided it would be a most excellent idea to shimmy underneath the carts and sit there as the world turns inside out searching for him. I hugged him and yelled at him for a good 10 minutes, ugly sobbing. 100/100 grateful for my Target folks. We catered lunch for them as a huge thank you and sorry my kid is an a-hole. You are so kind for catering lunch. BROOOO. My 5-year-old had a drawer of plastic cups that were always accessible to him. He could get a cup, fill it at the sink, and get a drink of water whenever he wanted. It was great. He had been doing it since he was 3. Anyway, one day, he decided he wanted a glass of water. So, we are eating breakfast. I got up to pee. I was away for literally a second. He pulled out a chair. He moved the chair to the kitchen counter. He climbed the chair. He used the shelves as grips and foot supports to climb up to the glasses. I came out of the bathroom. I walked back into the kitchen the moment that the top shelf broke. He fell backward. I dove forward. I caught my son in midair, moments before his back landed in a pile of shattered pint glasses. My forearms, hands, and wrists were all embedded with broken glass. Ironically, he literally put the chair directly in front of his little drawer full of child-safe cups. The glasses that were broken were among some of my prized possessions. So many unique pint glasses from Disney World, ski resorts, out-of-the-way American towns, the super cool ones that had been stolen from countless bars, grills, and restaurants. My wife has a compulsion, and even my PBR pint glass that my grandpa gave me, he stole it, too. Anyway, it was quite a day. I was the kid in this scenario. I was about 4 years old and wanted a carrot to snack on. Mind you, the carrot absolutely had to be peeled and no other way was acceptable to me, lol. My mom was exhausted and laying down on the couch but didn't mean to doze off, but hey, parenting is tiring and she did deserve that nap, lol. Instead of disturbing her, I decided to attempt to peel the carrot myself and sliced TF out of my thumb and freaked out. I remember the blood vividly. LOL, she freaked out too but managed to stop the bleeding and doctored me up. Thinking I learned my lesson because I was presumably a smart kid, she laid back down after that incident. No, she should have known better. I proceeded to stick a pair of tweezers in the light socket of the kitchen while snacking on my carrot. Shocked myself good and blew the power out. That is really sweet of you to try to peel it yourself so she could sleep though. Our firstborn was about 18 months, walking but not that agile. I was downstairs on the computer. Wife yelled down she was using the bathroom and for me to watch him. We misunderstood each other, so he was alone for about 3 minutes. She comes out asking where she is and he is nowhere to be found in the house. Thinking he's just hiding, we start a full search only to notice the back patio door is slightly open after a few minutes hunting. Growing concern at this point but figuring he just snuck out back. A full search of the fenced gated yard shows nothing. Now the heartbeat is going. Start running out and down the street. Find him 2 blocks down. He was heading to the park, which would have required crossing 2 roads, one of which was a busy one. Nice neighbors found him and were walking him home as they'd recognized us from previous walks. Years later, the little neighbor girl would remind us how he saved his life. Needless to say, child locks went on all the doors in the house after that. I had just moved into a new neighborhood on a cul-de-sac with my 2 young daughters, ages 5 and 2. I walked out to the community mailbox to grab my mail and met my next door neighbor while I was there. We chatted for a couple minutes when I heard my older daughter yelling from the front door, "Hey dad, younger daughter, YD, is naked." I look over at my house and YD is standing at the end of the driveway as naked as the day she was born. I locked eyes with YD, and with a laugh she turned around and started bolting the opposite way from me up the street. I quickly said goodbye to the neighbor, tucked my mail under my arm, and started chasing her down the block. I ended up scooping her up with my other free arm a block later while she was laughing her head off. All of the other neighbors got a good laugh seeing me chasing her down. Couldn't get mad at her as it was so funny, and was impressed she could get undressed so fast. Some kids are just like that. They gotta be naked and run wild. My brothers would do that and run laps around our house until my mother could catch him. I'd be regularly collect the little neighbor kid from across the street, naked and wandering. Went to the toilet, leaving the newborn asleep on a blanket on the floor, on top of a large fluffy carpet. 3-year-old was watching TV nearby. Came back to find baby literally rolled up in carpet like a dead body. 3-year-old sitting on top, with a cushion under him too. Still don't know how he did it at all, let alone so quickly, and how the baby was totally chilled and unharmed. When my youngest was born, my 3rd child had just turned 2. Our pet looked at me very sternly and said, "Never ever leave them alone together, even for a second. They will drop a baby to see if they bounce. They will smother them trying to wrap them up like a doll. Never leave them alone." I'm glad he told me that, BC she totally would have done something nuts. Woke up once and my 2 sons had climbed out of a window onto a flat roof. They were 1 and 3. I still don't know how they even got the window open. Convinced my triplet siblings at 3 years old to climb up the ladder onto the flat roof while dad ran inside to grab the water he'd prepared for us before going outside. I was making dinner for my twin 18mo when boy twin starts to fuss, so I carefully put the knife about a foot away from the edge of the counter. I intentionally put it away from the edge because my girl twin is not to be trusted. I go change my boy and turn around and my girl is casually holding my large, sharp chopping knife. I had to get it from her like a hostage negotiator so she wouldn't run away with it. I couldn't figure out how she got it, so I looked at the video and as soon as my back was turned she was grabbing the cutting board to pull the knife closer and then immediately skipped over the carrots and peeler to grab the knife. I was clearly correct in not trusting that feral child. That moment when they've got something dangerous and your instinct is to close the distance but you can't because then they're going to run with it. Freaking stressful as frick. Husband reading a sign about watching your children on the trail at Gooseberry Falls in MN. Looks up to see middle child heading to the edge of trail. People fall every year. Some die. I was further down the trail with the youngest. He kept a firm grip on her for the rest of the walk. As a young child I gave my parents so many scares anytime there were heights. All I wanted to do was be as close to the edge as possible and staring down. We moved into our new house on Halloween in 2001. Most of the heavy lifting was done, so the wife decided to begin unpacking the important stuff and I would take our 8-year-old daughter out trick-or-treating. We stepped outside and I realized I left my phone. Standing on the front porch I tell her, "Don't move. I have to get my phone. I'll be right back. Do not move." Narrator. She moved. New neighborhood. Kids and parents everywhere. I'm running up and down the street frantically and after about 15 minutes later I spot a family, mom and dad and a handful of rugrats, with mine in tow. They had a good laugh telling me they just turned around and there she was, having appeared out of nowhere. Decided to stay close assuming some hysterical parent would eventually come running. You gotta really wonder what's going on in a kid's brain to interpret "don't move" as wander off with this whole butt family you've never met before. Not my kid, but about 20 minutes ago a toddler just kinda wandered into my apartment. I had the door unlocked so maintenance could come in and out while working on something. My daughter and I heard the TV go on and sure enough some little blonde girl with cute pigtails is just plopped down watching cartoons. LOL. Her parents were probably crapping bricks. Not me but my wife. Our two younger kids are 14 months apart. When our daughter was around 3 and our son was 2, my wife went into the garage to grab a frozen pizza out of the deep freezer, and one of the kids, not sure which one, shut the door and locked my wife in the garage. She was banging on the door and could hear the little boogers and they're laughing at her. My wife was not amused. She got a flathead screwdriver from my toolbox and managed to unlock the door. This all took 15 minutes or so. When she got in the house, they were in their room watching cartoons and eating cookies they managed to steal. They would have left her out there all night. It's funny now 10 years later, but my wife was scared shitless. We have kept a spare key hidden in the garage ever since. My daughter was 18 months old, standing in between my husband and me in the kitchen, arm distance from both of us. She slipped, fell and broke 2 front teeth. The first kid is for practice. That's why my big sis has more scars than me. I had been drinking scotch one evening while doing dishes, so I'm standing at the sink. I hear my 3-year-old stumble into the room, pull a chair out from the table and climb up. I'm not thinking anything of this until I hear a small voice say juice as I turn to watch him dump about 1/2 oz of single malt into his mouth. This was immediately followed by a gasp. Then he turned bright white, then bright red. He went to bed early that night. I glanced at the salt, and toddler daughter grabbed a whole new potato off my plate and shoved it in her mouth. She then tried to swallow it and choked. Longest 15 seconds on my life getting it out of her. Learn child first aid, people. They are suicide machines as toddlers. When my daughter was little, probably about 3, she went with me to shop for some tools. I turned away to look at something and heard behind me, "Daddy, what's this up, honey? That's an axe. Please give it to me." She did, and all was well, but I'm glad my wife wasn't there. She would have panicked. That moment when you see your kid holding something sharp and or dangerous and you have to stay super calm so they don't make any sudden movements. Turning around and seeing a toddler holding a steak knife, you might as well be face to face with a bear. Found my baby boy had climbed to the top of a 4-featuring tall dresser after stripping naked and covered his entire body, face and hair with diaper cream. He performed this act in less than 3 minutes. So we took the kids, 7, 3, 3 and 3, to a water park. One of us would stay in the kiddie area with 2 of the triplets and the other parent would take one of the 3-year-olds and the 7-year-old on a ride. It was working pretty well. Note, the kiddie area was mostly contained, but there was no gate or anything. At one of the swaps, we blinked for a second and our adventurous 3-year-old was gone. Instincto frick panic. Get security there. Staff is looking. I'm running around looking. Anyway, we eventually found him. He had ridden a water slide with my wife earlier and decided that was fun. I'm gonna do it again. The 3-year-old had gone back to get in line for the water slide by himself, and they found him about 2 from the front of the line. At least you didn't have to describe him to security, just point at another one. My toddler at the time grabbed a stick of butter out of the fridge and tossed it into the fish tank. Minutes later all the fish were floating dead in the fish tank. Last time we owned fish. I'm a former aquarium hobbyist with a fish obsessed toddler. I will not get her a fish tank until she stops dropping every available object into her dad's coffee cup. So far the worst has been having to leave the remotes out to dry for a few days. A fish tank could be so much worse. I swore I would never tell this. At 19, I have a 9-month-old baby. I leave her on the bed to go pee. A beautiful spring day, windows open, cleaning. I come back. She's gone. Yet I can hear her. I am frantic, alone, and losing it. I check under the bed, in between the bed and the wall, everywhere, until I look up and realize the screen is out. She fell out the window into a bush outside and was laughing hysterically. Not one scratch on her. She's 17 now and I haven't ever shared that story with her or anyone but my therapist until today. I'm not the parent in this scenario, but I'll share the story anyway. I was in college and had a club meeting. Some of the people involved were non-traditional students with a toddler, and they had the kid there at the time. Okay, no big deal. He was pretty much entertaining himself. The parents were trying to pay attention to what was going on, much like the rest of us. when this one guy jumps out of his chair with a yell and grabs the kid. It turns out the kid had been playing with his dad's keys and was headed for the electrical outlet with them. I had taken my 4-year daughter into a public toilet in France, which was next to a main road. As we left, I let go of her hand for a split second as I looked away to close the door behind us. When I looked back, she was running into the main road as she'd seen her mum on the other side. From where I stood, my view of the road was obstructed so I couldn't see if any cars were coming, and she had gone too far for me to catch her. By a complete miracle, she got safely over the road. It sends shivers down my spine remembering the helpless terror I felt when I saw her in the middle of the road. I was the child in question, 2 years old at the time. We were at the beach, where about 2 feet into the sea there's a shelf where it suddenly gets twice as deep. My parents were distracted by my brother, so didn't notice me wander into the surf. When they next looked up, all they could see was my hat away floating on the water. Panic set in, and my dad sprinted into the sea, discovered that I was still wearing the hat, and was somehow floating completely vertical with just the hat showing above the water. Not a parent, but when I worked childcare I lost a child. We didn't have enough workers scheduled, just me and one other, for an event. The policies for the place were horrible, and for this event we had to accept any kids that parents wanted to drop off. So we had about 20 kids, around 12 toddlers, 4 kids who were too old to be in the nursery, 4 6 years old, and 4 infants. Well, we should have been in the same room as we only had 2 workers, but we knew the toddlers would end up hurting the infants if we did that, so we split up. I had the 16 kids, the other worker had the 4 infants. One of the toddlers had to use the restroom. Attached, he went on his own, and after he needed help buttoning his pants again. So I turned my back to the room, fixed his pants, directed him to the sink to wash his hands, and then turned back into the room. I immediately performed a head count and realized I was off by 1, so I counted again and again. Then I started frantically checking the closet and mentally figured out who I was missing. I was freaking out. Told the other worker and they're freaking out. We don't know where the kid is. Mentally I'm thinking I have to call the cops now and it's going to be a huge deal. The other worker calls the church's pastor, church event, and they call the child's parents. They had picked up their child. In the 10 seconds I had my back turned, the child's father had walked up to the half door. The child saw him and ran to the door, and he just picked them up and walked away. Didn't sign the sign out sheet. Didn't see an adult. Didn't do anything but walk up and carry their kid away. We were absolutely peeing. Now that I'm older I wouldn't work an event like that, or I'd turn away kids once we got to the point we couldn't take care of them. I wouldn't be in that situation again. I work from home. My son is usually with me while I work in the evening. One night I take a call. He was sitting on the floor next to me playing with his cars. He's 3. The next minute, I look over and watching him as he is flying through the air next to me. He had climbed up on our table and just launched himself off. I always mute myself when I'm not speaking when he's home, so thank God the customer didn't hear my oh my god as I caught him lol. My sister baked some cookies to share at work, and when her 3-year-old daughter seen them on the plate on the counter she asked for one. Instead of explaining she wasn't allowed to have one, my sister lied and said they were yucky, implying it was a bad batch. My sister, confident that her lie was successful, turned her back to finish cleaning up. She heard the plate being removed from the counter and turned around just in time to see all the cookies slide off the plate into the garbage. Her daughter smiled and just said yucky. Left my son at the kitchen counter while preparing pancakes. 1 minute he's there, the next thing I know he's successfully empties the syrup bottle all over the couch. I mean puddles of syrup in our cushions and pillows. First time as a parent I remember calling my mom crying because I was at such a loss for how to clean it all up. At that point, you just get another couch. My mom told me a story about me when I was 3-4 years old. She went to the kitchen for something and I got oddly quiet. Somehow my super speed powers activated and I was all the way in the bathroom, climbed into the sink and got my dad's razor. She walked in on me shaving my face. I looked like a baby vampire that discovered blood for the first time. Face just gushing with blood. I'm smiling and giggling and my mother was absolutely mortified. I'm in my mid-20s now and still have scars on my face from this. I swear babies that can't even flip over yet can teleport short distances when no one is observing them. You put that thing down in one spot, turn your back on it for 1 second and then it's moved a few feet away. They can do this because they don't understand how it's impossible. When babies learn enough about physics and object permanence to be able to move and navigate, they lose the ability to teleport, because then they know enough to figure out it can't be done. Mine was so bad about this, though we knew from the start he was rolling. Literally had just been born, put in the clear plastic crib thing, and I just watch this newborn baby roll over to his stomach. Nurse comes in, doesn't believe me, flips him and he rolls over again. Heard he shouldn't be able to do that about 50 times. Getting ready for my first Christmas party at a company. It's a family affair. We all looked great. Hubby was already in the car. Ran to the bedroom for something I forgot. We were running a little late. Ended up going to the party with my 3-year-old looking like a smurf because he thought my blue nail polish was just like mommy's makeup. Still to this day don't know how he got the cap unscrewed because he's 10 now and can't open an already cracked bottle of water to save his life. A photo would be greatly appreciated. Not a parent but the kid in the story. I have 2 younger sisters. They are twins and only 12 months younger than me. When I was 3 and they were 2, me and sis 1 put sis 2 in the washing machine while my mom went for a pee. She came back right in time because we were already playing with the buttons. Christ, that is terrifying and can happen so easily. I looked away for 1 second and my son, 1 year at a time, ate my pack of cigarettes that I thought he couldn't reach. Called poison control and they told me he'd be fine, and he'll probably throw up. When he did throw up, noticed he only ate a little bit if of tobacco, no filters or anything. I quit soon after that. I was the kid in this situation, but when I was about 16 now, my mom was helping me out of the shower and she turned around to grab a towel, turned back mere seconds later, and I was standing in the same spot but my face was covered in blood. I somehow managed to fall onto the rail for the sliding door and shoot back up to my feet instantly. I passed out shortly after and went to the ER. 17 stitches in my forehead, major concussion. I was lucky to survive TBH. Not mine, but my mother's. My brother and I were little, and he must have been around 2 years old. We were sitting in the living room coloring and mum left for the kitchen for 2 seconds. Within that time frame, my brother snorted a crayon. It was stuck in his nose and he then proceeded to cry hysterically. My mother obviously freaked out. Here on out I remember everything. But she is a superhuman and had her brain still working. She got hold of a pair of forceps to try and pull out the crayon out of my brother's nose. The crying was not helping since every time he gasped for air the crayon would go further in, the other nostril was open. Finally, in what seemed like forever, my mother managed to pull out the crayon. All our crayon rights were revoked immediately until we got fat crayons that would not enter any body cavity lol. I'll tell one on my mother's behalf. When I was 3 or so, we lived in an apartment with an arched set of monkey bars out back. A standard rule was that I shouldn't play on them when she wasn't around to supervise. Well, one day I was playing on them when the phone rang, so she ran inside to answer it, but not before ensuring that I'd gotten off the monkey bars and repeating her usual warning. One of the things she never allowed was for me to try and walk atop said monkey bars, and already being primed to play on them, I seized the opportunity. I'd made it to about the middle before I lost my balance and fell through the bars, wonking my head on them as I passed and then landing more or less head first onto hard, packed dirt. Had a stutter for years after that, and I suspect the process of getting over that is why I don't speak as if I grew up where I actually did. This was one of many times that I got hurt the instant I chose to disregard her warnings. Also included are the time I crushed my finger in a dumpster. The warning being to come and get her should I find the lid closed. My sister and I judged that she could toss it open and I could just time throwing the trash inside. We were mistaken. The time I was impaled on a tree, I was told to not climb cedar trees, especially the one that I climbed and then promptly slipped out of only to be helpfully caught by a branch through the groin on the way down. A number of bicycle wrecks and pseudo-fencing accidents, and, well, you get the idea. I feel very sorry for your mother. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.